We're going to do everything we can to protect every child in the state. So bans abortions when there's heartbeats and brain waves at 8 weeks. If that gets overturned, there's an 18-week. If that gets overturned, there's a 20-week.
Missouri Republican State Rep Mary Elizabeth Coleman has been called the new face of the anti-abortion movement. She's a longtime activist, she has 6 kids, she's running for state senate, and she's pushed for a lot of legislation to limit abortion.
There are a number of provisions in the initial bill that I filed, making sure that Planned Parenthood is not able to be a Medicaid provider. Also some enforcement provisions to make sure that people who are aiding or abetting avoiding the laws of Missouri are able to have some kind of a legal recourse against stopping that.
Some of her efforts have failed, even with Republicans' overwhelming majority in Missouri, like her bill to impose penalties for helping people get abortions outside the state, which didn't pass this year.
The bill you introduced was actually referenced in Politico this morning as sort of what the post-Roe future could look like. There would be penalties for people who went out of state to seek abortions.
Yeah, actually that's wrong. There's penalties for people who aid or abet violating the law. In fact, women are explicitly exempted from that.
And what would aiding and abetting be?
Yeah, so right now, if a woman in Missouri is wanting to schedule an abortion, she'll call the last clinic that's open here in Missouri, and that clinic will actually schedule an abortion in Illinois. And both of the entities are owned by the same legal entity, and so that's a coordinated effort to avoid the laws of the state of Missouri.
She played a critical role in Missouri's 2019 abortion law, which includes a trigger ban, meaning if Roe falls, abortion will immediately become illegal in this state, except in case of medical emergency.
Mary Elizabeth Coleman is clearly ambitious. She's very excited to impose her beliefs through policy on the vast majority of Missourians. I don't know how she can fix her face to talk about family values or conservative values from a religious frame in a state that has so failed to provide services, adequate housing, job opportunities, food. I mean, it's outrageous.
Our freedom cannot be bought with the blood of our children.
Oh gosh, I wouldn't think of it as a professional political career. I think of myself as kind of taking my turn in a citizen legislature, but certainly I've prayed outside of Planned Parenthood. Just really a longtime advocate for protections for the unborn.
Hi, glad to see you again. Listen, when you leave, I would like to share some information with you about women's health care, other clinics that I know are safe and give quality care.
Bonnie Lee is also an anti-abortion activist who prays in front of Planned Parenthood.
I'm sorry I didn't have my mic on. This is just resources.
It's the babies' lives. They're innocent. We fight for them.
Oh, you have a good day, sir.
Lee is part of 40 Days for Life, an international anti-abortion organization which she says taught her how to approach women and convince them not to get abortions.
I wear the voice enhancer because this busy street is so loud, and if I elevate my voice, they think I'm yelling at them.
There are people in the anti-abortion community who are yellers.
Yes, and that's unfortunate. And we're not going to get anyone to come and talk with us if you're me.
One tactic she learned is to recommend crisis pregnancy centers, religious organizations that offer aid but not abortion.
Who's there to help them and say, well, we can help you with child care, we will help you with getting housing, and if we on the sidewalk can build a relationship to where they'll come over and accept maybe some assistance, we're helping people. And yes, that helps the baby.
Yes, that you protect them.
No matter what happens with this Roe v. Wade decision, our work isn't finished. We still need to be there because women will continue to find themselves in an unexpected pregnancy. And so what better way to help them than to be at a place where they are going, thinking their only choice is abortion.
You said that women tend to say the reason they want an abortion is because they can't take care of the baby, they can't afford the baby. Does that ever make you wonder if there's something much broader that's wrong with society on a much bigger scale than just abortion? Like, why is it so expensive to have a child?
Well, I think a lot of times when a woman does find herself in an unexpected pregnancy, a lot of times she's not married. And a lot of times she's getting a lot of coercion from the boyfriend to abort.
Well, I just mean like the services you offer, like what if all women could get medical care for their infants, you know, not just those who were directed away from Planned Parenthood.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Ultimately, the most successful factor for the anti-abortion movement has been that there were people who bought the false premise that these anti-abortion actors were a bunch of really concerned grannies who were out in front of clinics, as opposed to a coordinated, well-funded political operation that was drafting legislation through a long game legal lens.
I just think that abortion is the greatest evil that we have right now in our country. The idea that the value of someone's life would be different based on how old they are is really horrifying to me. Okay, I'm so sorry. I have to gavel in or I'm going to miss.
I'll be right. Thank you.
Ellie Reeve, CNN, Jefferson City, Missouri.